The North Carolina Central University Eagles soared into the ATL and came out with their first Celebration Bowl title, taking down the Jackson State University Tigers 41-34 in overtime. The first overtime in the Black College Football National Championship. Woo! A thriller. We are here to break it down with you guys. I am Simone Stanley. He is Dylan Matthews, Dwayne Walker. Dwayne, yes. We said in the pregame show that in order for Central to complete this game, they had to come out and punch Jackson State in the mouth. They did just that.
They did exactly that. But more importantly, before we begin, mark it down. December 17th, 2022 will go down in HBCU football history. This contest had everything in it. It had drama. It had you were on the edge of your seat.
Right.
It had scoring. It had defense. It was just an incredible performance. And both conferences, the MEAC and the SWAC, should be profoundly proud of what happened here this afternoon.
You're missing one big thing
What's
this
that?
Game had, Dwayne.
What did it have?
The Philly Special. Executed to perfection. Only a true Eagles team could win a championship with the Philly Special.
You're not an Eagles fan, are you?
They know here. I ride with the birds. Birds of a feather flock together.
Yeah.
Hey, I knew at that moment that they had it.
Well, listen, I got to say this. Both of these teams have different type of styles. They say good fights are you have different matchups, right?
Right.
We look at Jackson State being sort of a flashy team, kind of in your face, what we're going to do, right? Where on the other side we have North Carolina Central, more head down, hard work. We do our talking on the field. But this just goes to show both styles can be successful. It's just all about taking on the personality of your coach and going out and trying to execute your coach's plan. And I think for the most part, really completely, both of those teams tried to execute that today, and it showed out on the field.
And I'm going to tell you exactly why. I'm glad you made that point, because North Carolina Central, they executed their team's game plan to the T. They held the ball 38 minutes, 9 seconds. Jackson State, 21 minutes, almost 22. They rushed for over almost 300 yards. I think it was like 265 or something like that. So really, Dwayne talked about, wanting to take on the personality of your team, wanting to execute the game plan. North Carolina State, in my opinion, did that better today than Jackson State, and that's why they were winner when it comes down to it.
North Carolina Central, yes, executed their game to perfection. And the time of possession, you saw it during the game. They had 2 drives that were over 6 minutes long, 2 drives that resulted into touchdowns. And when you're going to eat up the clock on offense for 6 minutes, you better come out with points, okay? And it can't be field goals every time, especially since Jackson State, as we saw in the game, is going to come out with those passes quick. They had one scoring drive. That was only 50-some seconds. It was 3 plays for like 90 yards, and it took 59 seconds. And Dwayne,
right?
That's why we got you on here, because you on point, okay?
No, 3 plays, 59 seconds, and 85 yards. So, but here's the thing. I admire the way North Carolina Central came out of the gate. He talked about punching JSU in the mouth. That's exactly what they did.
Right in the Tiger's mouth?
What'd I say?
No, because their thing is straight from the Tiger's mouth.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
You can't let my joke fall.
Okay, I'm sorry. My bad.
You had to explain this, okay.
But listen. They come out of the gate, first play from scrimmage. Mookie Collier takes the football, rushes for 12 yards, and then they come right back with a 42-yard strike. Richard to E.J. Hicks, challenging Travis Hunter. They went right at Travis Hunter this afternoon, which I absolutely positively loved. But more importantly, I admire the way the young man, the freshman, responded back with 2 late touchdowns in the game.
And we're going to see some graphics here on the screen. And you talked about Collier and his run game. Phenomenal. Central's run game, Collier, number 5, and then Davius Richards. And when you got a dual threat quarterback and a running back 1 who can carry a pile, that's dangerous, especially on 3rd down. And we talked about in the pregame show, you don't know which one of them has the ball at sometimes, and that's what makes their run game so dangerous. They have multiple guys that can kill you with the legs and move the pile, so it makes those fakes so dangerous. But let's look at these stats, y'all. The game, 41-34, decided in overtime. But look at the disparities. 254 rushing yards versus 64 rushing yards. 329 yards passing from Deion Sanders, who was throwing some strikes all day, versus 206 passing yards. Total offenses, 460 from Central, 392 from Jackson State. Two totally different games were played today, and the result was similar. It went to overtime. That's beautiful.
Well, definitely beautiful, but the name of the game was time of possession.
Yeah.
Matt Leone, the offensive coordinator for North Carolina Central, should be proud. Coach Trey Oliver, also proud. Those two, you talk about the rushing attack, Collier and Richard combined for 173 yards rushing, 94 by the quarterback, who led all rushers in the game, and then you counter back with Mookie, who carried 17 times for 79 yards. So they were a dynamic duo in that rushing attack, which accumulated 264 yards of rushing offense. That's incredible against a solid Jackson State defense.
And we got to give it up for Davius Richard a little bit more. I mean, dude put the team on his back, just on his back. And the other reason I want to give him a shout out too is because not only did he put the team on his back, but again, to my earlier point, he stuck to the game plan. He saw Deion Sanders out there airing the ball out, doing his thing. You know, you talked about it, only took 59 seconds for one possession. He didn't do that though. He did not allow the offense of North Carolina Central to be rushed. He stuck to the game plan. He took what the defense gave him. He didn't try to do too much. He didn't see, okay, Shador, you want to throw a 40-yard bomb or whatever it be? I'm going to do it right back. You know, whatever you can do, I can do better type deal. No, he stuck to the game plan, ran the ball when he needed to, took his shots when he needed to. He executed the game plan perfectly today.
And Davius Richards had 2 dots in this game. Ball right on the money. One for a touchdown pass in the corner of the end zone. The receiver got 1 foot down right out of the half. And 2, I believe on the opening drive when he went downfield. 2 really phenomenal passes in this game, but we know Davius for his dual threat ability. He showed that today. When you have a quarterback who is sitting on the sidelines like this.
He was locked in.
All game, Davius.
Listen, you called him a dual threat?
Yes.
That young man today was a triple threat.
Ooh.
Yeah, actually quadruple threat.
Oh.
Quadruple
Count them 1, 2, 3, 4.
Listen. Not only did he run for a touchdown, he caught a pass, caught a 2-point conversions on that Philly. Wasn't that it?
He caught passes too. Quadruple threat on the Philly special. He caught 2 passes.
So a quadruple threat, you could say.
Yep, and we got some first half highlights rolling. We had a phenomenal team on the ground at the bowl today, and we're going to have a full game breakdown from our Wally Pitt. So stay tuned on our YouTube. Turn your notification bells on because this is a game you're going to want to watch again and again and again. An instant classic. But there's a guy that I watch every Sunday, sometimes on Monday, one time on Thursday in the NFL. And when I tell you, his name is Jalen Hurts. When I tell you, during the broadcast, you know, any college game, they like to make comparisons to NFL players when you're watching bowl games on any level. Davius, what I see from him today, I'm just saying, it's given very much Jalen Hurts. And they talked about how much Davius benches and how much he puts into his hamstring strength. That's the same thing they say about Jalen Hurts. The way he's able to move that pile, move that, like.
So we're what? We're about 15 minutes in. Do we have like a cap on how many Eagles references she can make?
Okay, well, we're talking about the North Carolina Central Eagles, who have a quarterback that is like the Philadelphia Eagles, Davius Richard, who also completed the Philly special in a championship game to perfection. How can we not make references?
No, I mean, it's fine. I just wonder if we have a cap or not. You know
well, let's flip it. Let's talk about Deion Sanders, because that man put on a show as well.
He was definitely solid. He accounted for 5 of Jackson State's touchdowns today. He threw for 4. He threw for 329 yards. He was very efficient. He literally did everything that he could do. He was sacked a couple of times, but all in all, a great performance by both quarterbacks. What an exemplary job of leadership by both of those guys, responding when adversity hit. And Shador, I don't know if you had an opportunity to see any of his press conference after the game, but he sounded like a pro up there handling those questions, talking about, number one, how great this is for HBCUs in its entirety, about how much shine is going on with HBCUs right now. And even though we know that Shedeur is moving on to Colorado with his dad, make no mistake about it. You have contests like today, everybody wins. And both conferences, the MEAC and the SWAC, trust me, they are in good hands moving forward. There's television deals that are out there that, we can talk about a little bit later that'll give people free exposure to HBCU games. And that's what we need. It's all about reach and letting people see your product in prime time. So you don't think NFL players were looking at that game today? You don't think administrators from across the spectrum in all divisions, NAI, NAIA, D1, D2, D3, they're all looking. This is a grand stage. I can't wait to see the numbers that come out. Can't wait.
NFL scouts, not only NFL scouts and players, but the NFL commissioner was at the game. Roger Goodell was at the game. His nephew actually plays for Jackson State University, Charlie Goodell. So Charleston.
Yes, let's be proper.
Charleston. But they said he was named after his uncle named Charlie. So,
okay.
You know.
But listen, he wasn't the only commissioner.
Goodell.
Look, he wasn't the only commissioner there. Obviously, Commissioner McClellan there, as well as Sonia Steele's commissioner of the MEAC. So do you think there's any gameplay between a special sense of pride for the MEAC coming out on top with a female administrator with the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference? Now, they've had a long-running history of positioning female administrators in their program. So I just think it's phenomenal. And even if you look at what North Carolina Central has going on right now, their director of operations is Andrea Perry, director of football operations. And they talk about how it starts at the top with the coaches and the personnel within the team. So shouts out to North Carolina Central, a tremendous job today.
MEAC obviously dominating the Celebration Bowl, and the Carolina MEAC schools dominating the Celebration Bowl. But you guys, we have a lot of sound to get into. Like I said, we have our team that has been on site at the game. We're going to go to some sound, to some players. We're going to react to that. And we also got to react to some of these ref calls. I ain't letting that go. I ain't letting it go. Yikes. Refs, we going to talk about you. But we're going to react to some sound from the games first. But Trey,
I only remember the last play, honestly. Clock just got real low. We wasn't able to get the back out, motion him all the way out. They would have got confused in the responsibilities and the coverage. And personally, I feel like I should have just took the penalty and had a chance to get the right play exactly how we want instead of rushing things. So for me, it's just a learning experience and just weighing the pros and cons before the play.
Second row to the right.
Open mic broadcast, Joshua Davis. Ira Miller.
Use your mic, Mr. Davis.
Okay. Ira Miller, why your defense struggle so in the run defense had such a problem?
Guys just didn't do their job, and the guys that were supposed to have their back wasn't there. So, like I said, we had a few guys that were supposed to be here that left, and, we kind of paid for it. But we still tried what we could. We still tried to, maximize the opportunity that we had. And they did everything that we thought they was going to do, but we just didn't master our job. So that's what it looks like when you don't do your job.
Coach, Wilton Jackson, Sports Illustrated. When Travis Hunter caught that touchdown pass, what went through your mind? That's the first part. And then the second part of the question I want to ask is, how do you view your legacy at Jackson State now?
When Travis caught the touchdown pass, all right, we finally, I was expecting that a couple plays prior, but we finally got it at the end. Make sure we hit the extra point. I'm thinking ahead. I don't play or coach for legacy. I coach for kids. I coach for resolutions. I coach for love and passion. It's not a job to me. I read the stuff every now and then. I don't read everything because I ain't got that kind of time. But to even fathom the fact that I would do something for money and God has been good to me financially, that blows my mind. Because you didn't say that when I was in the hospital for a month and I came on the sideline in a wheelchair. Did I do that for money? when I'm reaching in my pocket and paying for stuff, did I do that for money? When I'm loving on these kids and doing stuff that you would even fathom that a coach would do, did I do that for money? Money don't move me. I move money.
Coach Roland Martin, there were two emotional moments after the game. You were picking players off the bench, but also in the tunnel, you embraced Robert Brazile. And both of you are very emotional. Talk about those two situations after the game.
I wanted to have a last opportunity to speak to my team as a unit. So that's why I was trying to get them in and comfort them as well. Because a lot of those young men were emotional because we didn't fathom a loss. We don't think like that. With Robert Brazile, that's like big brother. That's like uncle. And I feel like I let him down. Like, that's my man. Like, I call a few people before accepting the job to let him know what I was contemplating. And he was one of the ones because I wanted his blessing. And I wanted to understand the lay of the land because I didn't really know a lot about the HBCUs. And he's been there every step of the way. He's done things that you don't even understand. But he's been there for me to give me guidance and comfort and love and wisdom. And I sincerely love him. And I feel as though I let him down. And that's going to be with me for the rest of my life. I love him that much.
Last time seeing Deion Sanders in Jackson State post-game press conferences, we got to get to the comments because we appreciate all y'all who rocking with us live right now, and we've been reading the comments. So let's talk about it. Dylan, you got a good one for us.
Well, Rahman Muhammad Ali says, it seemed like the refs were on the SWAC payroll. So
Were they?
a lot of people not happy with the refs, and rightfully so. There were some questionable calls.
Dylan, or a boatload.
There were some questionable calls, to say the least.
There were so many bad calls. Every bad call in the game was in favor of Jackson State, to the point where the broadcasters on ABC, Jay Walker and Tiffany Green, were irate at one point, saying, "This is just, it's getting ridiculous. It's really getting ridiculous." Like there was the 3rd and 7 that Jackson State threw that pass. The ball was on the ground. They gave them the first down. The ball was clearly on the ground. And when Jay Walker agrees with me, I know I'm right, okay? I know I'm right when Jay Walker agrees with me. There was a late hit on Davius Richard after the play was called dead. Dude straight up pushed Davius. They're like, ref, where the call? No call. Clear late hit.
Right.
Well, they did call, the officials did call a late hit
One,
on
there was
Davis
2 in
Richard,
the game though.
and the other one they called was against Shadur Sanders. So they did call him.
They missed that one big. You got to call all of them. You're the ref. You can't just pick, I'm going to call this one and not that one.
As it relates to 3rd and 7, I want people to realize also, it's very, very easy to criticize the referees when you're out and the officials out there when the game is happening in live action. But I'm going to give some credit to a guy like Shadur Sanders, who recognizes, okay, there may be some question on whether or not that was a 3rd down catch or not. So what does he do? You talk about pace and time of possession. Well, he hurriedly gathered his troops up to the line so that they could run a play to kind of nix-nax all that. So I give Shadur Sanders credit for doing that. And I will agree with you that there were a couple of calls that perhaps they missed. But we got to realize, though, also, these are human beings. People make mistakes. They're human beings.
Yes,
and they make
Dwayne,
mistakes.
I'll let you get away with 1, maybe 2 bad calls in the game. But at the end of the day, this is a national championship. These dudes work hard to get here. You have at least 6 terrible calls in a championship game. That is ridiculous. Like they said, who said it's getting ridiculous?
DeMarcus Cousins.
DeMarcus Cousins, Boogie Cousins. It's getting ridiculous. There were so many bad calls. There was that one call, Collier was getting up after a big run, knee still on the ground. Whistle was blown. The play was dead. They come and push him after the play was already dead. How could you do that? There was a 3rd down where Davius Richard clearly got the first down, clearly pushed the pile. And again, Jay Walker agreed with me on the broadcast. The official said, he's short. He was clearly not short. He got it on 4th and 1, But he shouldn't have had to do that. That should have been 1st and 10.
So quickly double down, LSU Sports Fanatic also says Deion didn't quite pay enough. I'm gonna leave that there. I'm gonna leave that right there. Wow. Look, Dwayne, don't be mad at me.
Well, how did you feel? How did you feel about the refs?
No, like I said, there were definitely a lot of questionable calls. Now, as Dwayne said, I will give a point there. You have to give credit to Shedeur, because there were multiple times where he did exactly as you said. He hurried to the line and got a play off so they couldn't review the next play. But there were some ones where it's just like, dang, like really? Like, how do you let that happen in a championship game, in a game of this capacity?
Exactly.
But I do understand people make mistakes. I do understand all that. But, you know, there does come a point where you have to try and temper that a little bit. So that's something they definitely need to look at next year.
They couldn't go into the half and review that. There was 4 bad calls in the first half. Y'all couldn't go into the half and review. What we got going on? Let's tighten up.
Well, going into the half, obviously, and reviewing is not going to do anything.
No, I mean, let's come out in the second half and call a better game, guys.
Right. Well, let me also say this, okay? There's so much that goes into the art, I want to say the art of officiating, right? So where you might see one on layman's terms, it might not necessarily be that way. I'll give you a perfect example. You might watch a basketball game, correct? And you might say, "Oh man, why didn't that one ref make the call? It's happened right in front of him, underneath the basket." But if you know the art of refereeing, the official underneath the basket he's not looking up at the basket. He's following what's going on in the lane, so he's not going to see that. It's not his assignment. There you go. So you don't necessarily know the timing of it all, but I get what you're saying. No one wants to see or perceive that their team is being hosed. Let me also say this. This is a high-profile game, right? Mm-hmm. And I think one of the incidents you were talking about, when you say, "Oh, dude," you may have been talking about Travis Hunter.
Yeah, when he pushed Collier.
So,
dude is down. I didn't know that was legal in football.
So let me ask you this. Would you have rather seen Travis Hunter be thrown out of thrown out of the game over something that was so petty?
Nobody said throw him out the game. I'm saying throw a flag and do something 10 yards.
Hold on a second.
Can I get 10 yards?
Hold on a second. Let's just say he had a previous penalty, right? A previous penalty where he's in danger of being ejected, right? Mm-hmm. And so on that play right there, he got up and he touched the quarterback, pushed him a little bit. Do you think the official should have thrown it?
Yes, because the thing is, you know the rules. You've been playing football how long? The rules are the rules. Once you start bending the rules, that's when we get in situations like this. If you know that you're getting ejected next time, then hey, don't push a dude who's getting up after the whistle is blown. That's at the end of the day.
I invite anybody that thinks refereeing or officiating is easy. I want you to grab that whistle.
Did I ever say easy?
I want to see you, Simone, with that whistle.
And that's why they get paid so much to do. Coaching isn't easy. Playing football isn't easy. Nobody said it was easy, but if you have 7 bad calls at least and it's all going to one team.
Can I ask you a question? Are you going to incrementally go
up
from
because
6
the
to
more
7?
I sit here, the more I think about more bad calls. At least 6. And all I'm saying is it's ridiculous.
Well, we can at least...
It's getting ridiculous.
We can at least say this. We can at least say the football gods worked everything out because Central still won the game, and I do believe at the end of the day they were the better football team today.
Well, let me say this, because again, if Central lost this game, there would have been a lot of mad people at the refs. The refs got lucky that they didn't get paid enough. I'm just playing. But let's talk about this, because somebody said in the chat, time of possession.
Big thing.
Central controlled time of possession by what? Running the ball?
Yes.
Do y'all think that once Jackson State got their lead, that they should have tried to eat up more clock and run the ball more?
I will say this. I will say Jackson State has always been a prolific passing team this entire season, correct?
Yes.
Is it safe to say that? And Central has always been a heavy run team. So in a close game like that, you want to stick to your identity, whether it's prolific passing or whether it's running the ball heavy. Now, Jackson State, they stuck to their identity. I give them credit, and that kept them in the ball game. Now, the thing that hurt them is that when you got up, you couldn't necessarily bleed the clock down because you are a prolific passing team. So on one hand, could they have maybe tried to run the ball a little bit more? Hindsight's always 20/20. You can always say that. But on the other hand, you want to stick to your identity. You want to stick to what's working. And what was working for Jackson State is you give the ball to Deion Sanders, let him make a play with his arm. And he did that. He accounted for all 5 Jackson State touchdowns. But on the other hand, it did bite you coming back to it because North Carolina Central, they did their job too, sticking to their game plan and running the ball and, eating some clock up, and it came back to hurt Jackson State. So, like you said earlier, to start us off, styles make fights, and that made the fight. Two contrasting styles, and one gave way to the other, and it was the Central Eagles.
Well, also, I think this was a game of trickery too, all right?
Yeah.
North Carolina Central, they ran a fake punt, right? They gained 40 yards and a first down to keep their drive alive. What else did they do? You talked so effectively about the Philly special that happened, right?
Yep.
Another trick play. We looked at a play where they did a end around reverse to E.J. Hicks, who threw a 31-yard reception to the quarterback, Davius Richard.
Yep.
So I like the way Matt Leone, the offensive coordinator, mixed it up and gave the Jackson State defense something to think about all afternoon long.
So going into overtime, do you think that Jackson State won the coin toss and they decided to defer play defense? Do you think that hurt them, knowing that, pretty much the Eagles both teams have been able to score, as we saw during the regular season. The Jackson State Tigers and the North Carolina Central Eagles both averaged around 38 points per game.
Right.
And we saw that in regulation. They ended with 34 points per game. So it was the offenses that both showed up tonight.
Right.
Would you have, if you were Jackson State, would you have elected to start on defense or offense?
Well, I agree with the decision. I'm sure had North Carolina Central won the coin toss, I'm pretty certain that they would have elected to start on defense also. So those are decisions that are really predetermined, to be honest with you. Just like, let's just say Jackson State had tied the score at 40, the score was 41-40. Do you go for two, the win, or do you go for the tie? Deion Sanders would have went for the tie, would have ridden it out because he would feel that in another overtime period, his team would be able to prevail. So I don't fault that move. I would have preferred to go on defense as well to start.
Let me build upon that real quick, and I do agree with the sentiment that you go on defense first. That way, your team knows exactly what they need to do heading in, going into that overtime period. I do want to pose a question though. LaVon Williams in the chat says Deion was out-coached. Do you guys agree with that sentiment from LaVon?
You're trying to get us too much, Dylan.
I'm just trying to. I'm making sure the chat gets some love.
I'm gonna let Dwayne start. Let me see what Dwayne
Do I feel
say.
as though he was out coached?
Well, you gotta repeat the question.
Repeat the question.
So LaVon, it's pretty straightforward.
Listen. I'm having you repeat the question so that I can form my answer in my mind. So knock that out for me, Dylan.
Well, I got you. Well, LaVon Williams in the chat, shout out to everybody in the chat right now, says Deion was out-coached. It's a hard thing to tell, but it is a question that needs to be asked and needs to be answered.
Well, the game came down to the final. Tight end dropped a touchdown pass, and there's drops in every game. There was drops earlier in the game, so many players. So it's not like he lost the game. There was a lot of missed opportunities by both teams.
Correct.
But a player was open in the end zone, and they were not able to haul in the pass. If that pass was caught, who knows? Jackson State could have won the game. So I feel like it was even. It went to overtime, showing that it was even in regulation. And there was an opportunity right there for somebody to be open in the end zone for Jackson State to win the game. So the game was even to me.
Well, here again, the human factor. It's unfortunate that tight end Hayden Hagler dropped that pass. He was open in the end zone and simply dropped. But again, we're talking about human beings. Heck, Travis Hunter dropped a pass that was near the end zone, right?
He did.
Right? But how did he respond? He redeemed himself by catching a touch, what proved to be the game-tying touchdown, correct?
As time expired.
Right. But unfortunately for Hayden Hagler and the rest of the Jackson State University Tigers, they ran out of opportunities. So that's the key there.
So we have some boots on the ground who have been at Mercedes-Benz Stadium for the game, pregame, everything. We're going to go to them, our live reporter on the scene. We're going to ask him some questions, vibes, games, stuff he's heard on the sidelines. Vaughn, what's up? How you feeling?
Hey, how are y'all doing?
We're doing great. Vaughn, first of all, watching the game on TV, it was wild. I know the vibe had to feel so different being at the game. How are you feeling, Vaughn? This was a thriller.
No, it was wild in the stadium. It really was wild. It was everything. It was the pinnacle of HBCU athletics. We got to give a shout out to the Celebration Bowl staff, John Grant and his team. Matching the top MEAC school and the top SWAC school was a brilliant idea, and we got what we had today. And Simone, what's interesting is, of course, there were plenty Jackson State fans and North Carolina Central fans, but every HBCU fan base was here with their gear on. So it was it is what it was supposed to be.
Was it a somber mood, Vaughn, on the Jackson State line, like on the Jackson State side? How rough was it for the fans to take the loss?
Well, what we learned here at the post-game press conference is there are several players, especially on defense, that left the team. That was kept under wraps. We did not know about it until Shador and Aubrey Miller kept referring to him. And Aubrey Miller said, yeah, some of the guys I depended on all year, on my right, on my left, were not here. So that's a story within itself that we dig in and find out, exactly who was missing. And, no team is great enough to be missing stars that you depended on all year.
So, Vaughn, let me ask you, before the game went into overtime, it was an amazing grab by Travis Hunter back at home in Georgia. It seemed like Central probably felt like they had that game before that catch was made. What was the vibe like on the Central sideline when Travis Hunter caught that pass and Central knew that they had to take this game to overtime? Were they just instantly deflated? Were they still turned up, piped up? What was the vibe?
For a watcher who happened to be standing right in front of the sonic boom and the cheerleaders, and Travis caught the ball 10 feet in front of me, it was electric. It really was. This game deserved to go into overtime. Two great coach teams, great athletes on both sides, two great HBCUs, the celebration boat. This was the national championship. It deserved every minute that we played.
Vaughn, talk about the emotion for Central, because obviously a huge win. They heard all the hype coming into this game about Jackson State, and they knew what was going on. They knew the task at hand. Just talk about their reactions after the game, and maybe interesting stories told, and just their reaction after the ball game.
Well, at least HBCU Gameday is not the only one that Central's coach took a shot at, because he took a shot at us yesterday. We didn't include them in our top 10 preseason. But the team did not show this to us. Central came in and they wanted to be under the radar. I think that helped Central by being the underdog and feeling that they had everything to prove. It relaxed them. All they had to do was what they did all season. Coach said several times, our team is built on high schoolers. His team is young. And they were going against, they had nothing to lose. They were going against the juggernaut media team in HBCU sports in the Jackson State Tigers, obviously with Coach Prime and all the media that comes with that. But it was just a great HBCU game. Both bands were phenomenal. The cheerleaders were phenomenal. The fans were into the game. And I think over the last few years, I've seen growth in the fan base, understanding that they are needed to help the game. And I was really proud to see that today.
Vaughn, you talked about other fan bases being at the game. Was it a particular fan base that seemed like they had a larger group outside of Jackson and Central?
The MEAC schools gravitated toward the Central side, and the SWAC schools gravitated to the SWAC side. The FAMU fans were split because half of them still like the MEAC and some of them like being in the SWAC. But as on this stage, it was everything you could ask for. It's one of the most exciting football games, period, on any level that you will see. Both coaches pulled out every trick in the book to try to get this win. That's what it's supposed to be. It's a national championship. It's not given. And for North Carolina Central, you know, in a school that's known for their basketball coach who has a statue in Durham, football is making their way through.
So, Vaughn, let me ask you this. You're a FAMU guy. You've been a fan of them in the MEAC and also in the SWAC. The MEAC has been dominating the Celebration Bowl. Why do you think that is?
Coach Simmons said very clearly, because he had coached in both conferences, he said the MEAC is a much more physical conference. The MEAC likes to run, and that's how North Carolina Central won the game today. They controlled the clock, and as Coach said, we kept Deion Sanders off the field. And that turned out to be a great strategy today. Time of possession was greatly in, if I'm looking at my stat sheet, it was greatly in North Carolina Central's favor as I try to scan through my
It was
stat
like
sheet.
38 minutes
I think
to
it was like 38,
minutes.
yeah, like 38 minutes, yeah.
You could have just
That's how you
asked
win the
me,
game.
Vaughn. You didn't have to look at the sheet. You got me.
Okay. I'm not used to this in the field thing. I'm used to always being able to refer back to a note. But yeah, North Carolina Central controlled the game, but Jackson had those explosive plays, that long touchdown that Shador threw. You won't see it on my highlights because I was repositioning. It happened so fast. And they just kept having strikes, big strikes. Central kind of grinded it out. They ran. Davius was amazing. There were times where you could see him take the team on his back, just get those big rushes, continue to grind down the clock. Every time he rushed and got a first down, then they could take their time calling the next plays, and they did that. That's one thing I noticed. North Carolina Central did not rush their plays out. They gave Davius time at the line to read what was going on the defense. He was well coached, and he knew how to guide the team from there.
Vaughn, so we had a little friendly debate in the studio about the refs. I'm going to ask you. You were at the game, so you get to hear the woos and the boos at the refs. How did you think the officiating was today? Am I being dramatic when I say the officiating was trash?
It was.
Say it, Vaughn. Say it with your chest.
Yeah, I thought that was a fumble by Jackson State. But I also thought that pass interference, that ball was not catchable because the receiver turned the other way. There was no way he could turn back and get that ball. So I think it kind of evened out. I think I didn't see it as one-sided. There were some crucial calls, but most of the time when you look back on the replays, they were pretty accurate. So I think there were two blown calls, in my opinion, one on each team, so that kind of balances out.
Oh, Vaughn, you gave me the answer I did not want to hear, but
sorry,
you're
Simone.
right, I guess. So, Vaughn, this game was back and forth. I mean, Central came out, jumped out to a 2-score lead. I believe that was the only 2-score lead of the game. When they missed that point after attempt, the broadcasters were saying that could come back to bite you. You know, when you're in a close game and you miss a point after attempt, you always think that could come back to bite you. And then Jackson State, they go for a 2-point conversion. Central's defense is not having it. Do you think that there was a pivotal moment in this game? We thought that the missed point after attempt might have been a pivotal moment, or when Jackson State first took the lead. Was there a momentum shift, or was it just straight down the middle?
I thought both teams did a good job of controlling their emotions and the flip-flopping of the game, going back and forth. I didn't see either side get too high or too low. I didn't see either coaching staff get too high or too low. They both played the game and coached it very professionally. You know, on the sidelines, of course, the fans are dramatic. I mean, the fans are, you know, overly dramatic. That's what they do. That's what their job is. But as far as the coaching staffs and the players, I thought they did a great job of maintaining their composure, knowing that it was a 60-minute game, in this case 60 minutes plus, that they needed to stay stable and continue to execute until the last second rolled off the clock.
So, Vaughn, let me ask you this lastly. I know you had a long day. You had a long day yesterday out in the field. Bowl games are really a showcase for players to be in front of NFL scouts' eyes, amongst other things. Are there any players from this game that you really wasn't on your radar before this game, but now you're like, I got to keep my eye on that brother?
No, I actually knew that both teams had some exceptional players. So I really was not. I mean, HBCU Gameday, we highlight these kids on on a weekly basis. So we're very familiar with both teams. And not only were there NFL scouts here, the NFL commissioner was here on the sideline. So it was really a grand stage for HBCUs. Once again, both coaches give credit, and every coach that has been here gives big credit to the Celebration Bowl staff for their development of an amazing bowl game, a great experience. All of the players today talked about the great experience they had at the bowl game. So this was what it was supposed to be. A national championship game is not supposed to be a blowout. It's supposed to come down to the last second, and in this case, overtime. So we got our money's worth. I'm sure the ratings for the time that people watched, that not only are ratings judged by how many people sign on, it also judges how long they stay on. I beg to say that today, for the Celebration Bowl, it was probably a record for the number of minutes watched by each household.
And you would be right about that. Now, can we agree on this? We disagreed on the refs, Vaughn. We got to agree on something before I get you out of here.
Okay.
Is this game an instant classic?
Absolutely. 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 And, you know, there was a little nervous minute here at the press conference. We did not know if Coach Prime was going to come. It was just really weird. It was hushed. But he came in and, in his usual self, lightened up the room. He was very complimentary of other HBCUs and his experience. And I think Coach Prime did what he said he was going to do when he came in. He never told us he was going to stay at Jackson State for 10 years. He did a lot of things while he was at Jackson State. He and Shador and Shiloh left everything on that field today. Travis Hunter, they all left everything on the field today. They were not looking past this game to Colorado. So in that sense, I think we got our money's worth out of this national championship game, and it deserves to reside in Durham, North Carolina.
Vaughn, Wilson, thank you so much for your time, the work you put in behind the scenes yesterday and today, and of course, all the time here on HBCU Game Day. Appreciate you, brother.
All right, thank you so much, Simone.
Of course. Well, guys, we have the sound from the North Carolina Central Eagles, your 2022 Black College Football Champions. We're going to hear from them in their post-game pressers.
Congratulations on the Celebration Bowl. When I came by campus and covered your homecoming, you guys had a certain look in your eye, and you maintained that down the stretch. Talk about what you guys were able to do, and in particular against Jackson today.
Honestly, we didn't really do nothing special. We just did what we did all season. That looking, you said in the eye from homecoming, we had that the first game of the season. So, I mean, throughout the whole season, we just came that same mentality, the same mindset, and we knew it was at stake.
Like you said, it just rolled over. From the first game, we knew what type of team that we had and the things that we could accomplish. So from there on, we just kept our head down, kept working.
Third row to the right.
So, basically, what kind of instant reaction did you have?
Aaron Wilson with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Davis, for you, you had a big game on the ground and through the air. Just kind of, what were you seeing? How were you able to make plays consistently?
First and foremost, it started off with the game plan. Coach Leone did a great job with that. Then it went to the offensive line. There were 5-6 guys that played today. I mean, they boys played their heart out. Some of them could barely walk through the game. So they did a good job of doing that, opening up the run game, and then that led to the passing game. Our receivers did a good job of tracking the ball, catching the ball that came their way and making their plays. And then the running backs, I mean, them boys ran with an edge on their shoulder today, but I ain't even surprised they do that every week. I mean, it probably our first time seeing that, but I see it throughout practice and throughout each game. Yeah, we got a two-back system, boys. That's all for real. Them boys just did their job.
The faces of champions. You got to love it for them. Great year. Davius Richard put on a phenomenal performance. This was a game, going into the game, we were saying the quarterback star power is going to be the main thing. And Deion Sanders did everything he could to keep his team in that game, send that game to overtime, Davius Richard, on the other side, did everything he could to claim this title, this 2022 Celebration Bowl title, the first one for North Carolina Central University. Y'all, the Celebration Bowl marks the end of college football season.
I understand. I understand we're a little bit sad, but we also should be happy at the same time because we got such a great football game. I mean, watching this game was excitement from beginning to end. So it is bittersweet that the season is ending, but at least we got some great football play at the last game of the season in the Celebration Bowl. I do want to get into the chat a little bit, however, because some spicy things are being said in the old chat.
Oh,
they spicy in the chat all the way. They're on 10. So Hassani-ism keeps on saying Mr. 0-2, talking about Deion and his record in the Celebration Bowl. I know we want to talk about Deion's legacy a little bit.
Right.
Are we marking it as incomplete because of that Celebration Bowl record?
Well, Ms. Simone went on earlier and said that this was the last time that we would see Deion Sanders coaching in his last game. Well, let me just remind you, the final chapter isn't necessarily written. You don't know what could possibly happen. I'm sure there is an empty feeling that's left in his heart. Who knows? Maybe he goes on to Power 5 success and decide at the tail of his career to come back to HBCUs. I've seen it done. We heard from Vaughn Wilson, talked about his beloved Florida A&M. I know a guy that was a mentor of mine. His name was Nelson Townsend. He was the athletic director at Florida A&M, well, UMES to start. Then he went to Florida A&M, and then he came to my alma mater. So he goes from an HBCU to a PWI, and what does he do? He completely turns our program around, and we end up having 3 additional African-American athletic directors after him, Alan Green, Mark Allnut, and Ward Manuel, who's actually the AD at Michigan right now. So what he did in leading us from a Division III program to a Division I program, he's the reason why we're playing in a college bowl right now. So it works. It really works both ways. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. If you really wanted to get down into the dynamics of Shedeur Sanders and Coach Deion Sanders and his legacy and what he has brought, I'll tell you about his legacy.
Tell us about it.
Recommending JSU alumni T.C. Taylor for the coaching duties, recommending him to take over the program. Mm-hmm. Excellent choice. Excellent choice. How about putting his money where his mouth is to help JSU get new locker rooms? Having the audacity to call out HBCU alumni who don't give back, citing that just 7% of HBCU graduates do. How about the new facilities be brought in, the turf practice field through his sponsorship affiliations with Walmart, and a brand new stadium that's coming to JSU? How about the economic impact he's made, $30 million to the Jackson community, no less. Recruiting in a 5-star, Travis Hunter, to commit to JSU. Branding, Sports Illustrated cover, ESPN College Game Day, 60 Minutes, Good Morning America, extensive TV media coverage. How about on the social media tip? Him and his son Deion Jr. and Well Off Media allowing nearly all access. I'm sorry, nearly all access. Excuse a little faux pas there. But really giving JSU fans and new followers an opportunity to peek behind the curtain of what goes on with the JSU program. That's completely unprecedented, but you'll see it more. And speaking of Neely, sure, the relationship that he had with him and the pregame show, the comic interaction with reporter Rob Jane. I know you talked about Muhammad Ali, Muhammad Ali. Their shtick reminds me, this is before your time, Howard Cosell and the Muhammad Ali. So, Coach Prime definitely has a legacy, his community activism, bringing light to the Jackson water crisis, trying to get the politicians of the state to work together in Mississippi, Tate's Reeves and the Jackson mayor's office. But most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, being a father and positively mentoring and sowing into these young men's and women's lives, while at the same time motivating and challenging other individuals inside the program and outside of the program. You can't tell me nobody on here is set up here and say, you know what, maybe I could do a little bit better. Maybe I need to step my game up. So that's the type of cachet Deion Sanders, Coach Prime brings to the table.
So someone said in the chat, did anybody pick North Carolina Central? I lost his name. Oh, here it is. Johnny Thornton. Johnny Thornton. Yes, somebody did pick North Carolina Central, and that somebody's name is Simone, with a Y, Stanley. And they were clowning me on the pregame show about picking Central. I did pick Central. There was no reason not to. The MEAC dominates the Celebration Bowl. The Carolina MEAC teams dominate the Celebration Bowl. I'm a Carolina girl. I'm a ride with the state.
So you saw it from the beginning.
We saw what South Carolina State did last year. Hard mouth. What Vaughn say? Hit him in the mouth. Football.
And I did see someone in the chat say that Central did play big boy football today too, and that Central, maybe took a little bit away from. I mean, it was kind of hard their identity, but maybe they took a little bit away from what South Carolina State was able to do last year and implemented it into their game plan this year a little bit. So that's a good call there.
They may have taken it away because South Carolina State actually one of the two teams that beat Central this year.
There you go.
Earlier in the year. And could I, if I can, could we just pay acknowledgement to former MEAC Commissioner Charles Turner? Correction. Let me see. Charles? Hold on. Let me check my notes.
While you're checking those notes.
Let me check my notes. Good save. I appreciate you.
Not a save, just a little seamless transition. Oh, you're back?
Charles S. Harris, former MEAC commissioner. I was going to get choked up because I know there's a few MEAC commissioners that have passed away. Of course, Ken Free, you talked about North Carolina. The first full-time MEAC commissioner, Ken Free, who passed away as well. So a little bit touched with guys passing away, because he's the guy that brought me into the HBCU fold. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Allowing me to come and doing PA for the MEAC basketball tournament on both the men's and women's teams. So showing me a lot of love, because believe it or not, there are a lot of people who did not necessarily attend HBCUs or have that special HBCU feeling, but they do want to be a part of it, whether that's by giving their money or covering it. So I just want people to realize that. And also, when you talk about legacy, there's only 2 coaches on the JSU staff that are from historically black colleges. Their running back coach, Coach Gary, as well as T.C. Taylor, the former JSU star. Everyone else is not from HBCU, yet they came together and helped create this atmosphere that JSU is going to benefit from.
Let me talk about North Carolina Central again, because we had a lit pregame show. I'm not sure if everybody in the chat watched our pregame video, but our guest Josh Sims made a great point. Jackson State went undefeated in the regular season. They had a couple of close calls though. They had a close call against Tennessee State University. They had a close call against Alabama State. They had a close call against Alcorn, some could say. And Josh Sims said the difference in this game, because he picked Central as well to win this game, was that Davius Richard was going to be the best quarterback that Jackson State has faced all season. That Jackson State's defense, these other teams' defenses that were close with Jackson State in those games were able to hold Jackson State's offense, but when their offense came on the field, they were not able to put points on the board. But what we saw today, this Central offense was the best offense. This quarterback, Davius Richard, his quadruple threat, because he catches passes too. His ability, that's the best quarterback they have played all season, and it just showed. And it's a cold brother. I just can't stop talking about him.
Well, game kind of recognizes game, and if you reviewed the tape on North Carolina Central, you would have known they started out of the gate against North Carolina A&T with a big victory to begin the season. A little later in the season, they beat number 18 New Hampshire out of the Colonial Association, and then they followed that up defeating a very pesky Morgan State team. So they've been battle-tested all year long, but it all starts at that quarterbacking position. And there's something about having a 6'3" stud out there who looks like a cross between Dante Culpepper, might be going back again, Dante Culpepper, and who's my man with the Eagles? Him and T.O.'s best friend. What's his name?
Donovan McNabb?
There it is.
Okay.
So this young man reminds me of a combination of Dante Culpepper and Donovan McNabb as it relates to his body structure and his upper body strength. All you have to do is look at the tape. You don't want to see that young man. You don't want to see Mr. Richard.
Oh.
Now, you said T.O. and D-Nab best friends?
I was being facetious.
Oh, I was about to say.
Yeah, I was being very facetious.
They've had some known beef, you know what I'm saying? But
that's not his quarterback.
But again, Davius Richard, it was a couple of like third down situations where he had to move the pile. That's a lot of quarterbacks who don't want to go in the gym and work on their legs. They skip leg day. Davius Richard is not skipping leg day.
He ain't skipping no days. He built up top and
Right,
down
he
below.
built up top and bottom. But
Skipping no days.
they keep saying in the chat 0-2 and 0-2 and 0-2, and they want to ask why we're talking about Jackson State. But anytime it's the end of an era, you got to discuss it. You have to discuss it. And I don't necessarily think that Deion Sanders should hang his head because he did not get the Celebration Bowl. That just goes to show how awesome HBCU football and MEAC football is, that the competition is still there. That, you know, people were saying, oh, he built this super team. There's no way an HBCU team could beat this super team that he built. But look, that just goes to show that the competition is fierce, baby, in HBCU football, that even though you put a 5-star here, you put a 4-star here, you put a whatever, could have went here, whatever star there, that the coaching and the talent in HBCU football is top notch, that you can't just come in and walk away easily with a win because you recruited a super team. That's just more hats off to Central than it is a knock on Deion Sanders, to Central and Buddy Pugh and South Carolina State.
Well, when you say recruit a super team, I'm not sure if I necessarily agree with that description. It's just a matter of having the confidence to go after the best players at the collegiate and portal level. So there's nothing wrong with that. Everyone has a fair opportunity to go out there and make their pitch to recruits. You just have to make the effort to do it and mentally decide, yeah, this is what I want to do. There's so much that we can do to help support HBCUs, and we talk about resources and talk about dollars. Man, one day we can sit down and talk about it, talk about viable solutions to bring real money to the table. Not down the road, but now, in 30 days.
And quickly, while we're on the topic of the shmoney,
yeah,
you talked about, and when we were talking about Deion's legacy, how the things that he did for Jackson State are bigger than football. And even though he didn't win a Celebration Bowl, the impact that he had on the lives of young black people and the finances he brought into Jackson State University, how that makes it bigger than football, and that's why his legacy isn't necessarily complete. Do we think those finances will still roll in after the prime era?
My biggest thing is it shouldn't have to be necessarily on the hands of fans, but there was a lot of people that tuned in today because it was Deion Sanders. There was a lot of people that showed up to the game today because of Deion Sanders. One thing we can do as fans, still go to your team's game. Yeah. Still go to Jackson State every Saturday. Still tune in if your team is on ESPN, if your team is on CBS, if they're on ESPN+, if they're on whatever platform they're on. Tune into every game. Heck, even if you don't like football, turn it on your laptop, watch something else on TV. Just let them get that stream.
Right.
But one thing we can do as fans is still show up. Whether Deion Sanders is here or Deion Sanders is not, you can still tune in. You can still sell out your stadium.
It's a number thing. It's a numbers thing. Jackson State's basketball coach, Mo Williams, said, hey, look, if we can get 60,000 people to come to the football games, we should be able to get 5,000 or 6,000 to come to our facility, our home facility, to fill the place up. And he talks about, needing that. But one of the reasons why I'm going to tell you that the SWAC and other conferences are going to be in good hands, but specifically the SWAC, okay? So coming up beginning in 2023 and 2024, do you know who the chair of the NCAA men's basketball committee is going to be?
Who's that?
You put us two on the spot.
Right, that was on the spot. We talking about football. I wasn't worried about basketball question.
We talking basketball.
First, let me say this. Let me say this. You do realize next to the Super Bowl, the NCAA tournament is like one of the biggest events.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
March Madness.
So your commissioner, the SWAC commissioner, will be the top dog with that committee. He'll be in the room, be running the room. He'll have impact. He'll carry influence. That will trickle down to not only HBCUs, but all of college sports. I'll put it to you that way. So there's definitely reason for supreme optimism moving forward for HBCU athletics.
Y'all, today is going to go down in football history,
right?
But specifically Black college football history. We got the Black college football national championship went down today. We've got 3 beautiful black faces. We got the Black Nutcrackers. We got Black Santa. Can they see Black Santa? Black Santa back there. Dwayne's blocking Black Santa. But it's just a lot of black excellence going on.
Yeah.
We've got to get to our Protect Your School HBCU Gameday Players of the Year. It's kind of emotional because the Celebration Bowl going into the Players of the Year is football season is the best season. Can we agree?
Yeah.
Oh, most definitely.
I agree with you on that.
Without a doubt.
Let's get to our Players of the Year to wrap up the show. Division 1, Division 2 will be dropping on Monday, HBCUGameday.com, so make sure you are there. Our Division 1 Offensive Player of the Year, Deion Sanders, and he showed it today. That arm cannot be denied.
Not at all. I mean, Deion Sanders, what he was able to do, not only today, but for the entire season, definitely has to be talked about and has to be praised upon. He showed why, his father was talking about him being a Heisman candidate. And, I don't know if people want to go that far, but Deion Sanders, he was consistent all year long and led Jackson State up until the point where they got today. And unfortunately, they came up a little bit short, but I won't put that on the shoulders of Deion Sanders.
He ends the season with 41 touchdown passes, only 6 interceptions, 2-time SWAC Offensive Player of the Year. He's definitely made an impact on his young legacy. And also, let me just make another point. So let's just say it's you, Simone. Let's say it's you, Simone.
Winning $1 million?
No, listen, just say it's you. I want you to be Shalomi Sanders. And I want you to be Deion Sanders, okay? All right.
Bossy.
So let me ask you a question. You're in college.
Yep.
Whose life is it anyway? Is it all about what Coach Deion Sanders wants or what the kid wants?
It's all about the kids, baby.
Exactly.
Especially,
exactly. It's all about the kids,
right?
His children and what they want.
For sure.
What if they wanted to make them? What if Deion want? You know what, Dad? I came and we did this HBCU thing, which I absolutely love the experience. But I really want to test my merits with a Power 5. That
Great
opportunity presented itself, and I, as a dad, I cannot fault my son for wanting that if that's something that he wanted to accomplish.
We're gonna see what that arm do in the Pac-12 next season. We're gonna see what that arm do. But one of the biggest things on Shador's stats is, you said 6 interceptions. When you look at these college football players, boy, they be racking up the touchdowns.
Yeah.
But that 6 interceptions is super impressive because a lot of these guys be throwing so many interceptions in college football. So for our Offensive Player of the Year, Protect Your School, HBCU Gameday, Division 1, Division 2 dropping on Monday, Player of the Year, the separation between the 41 touchdowns to only 6 interceptions, I don't think people understand how hard that is.
Especially with the amount of attempts he's taking too.
Right.
I mean, he threw 30 plus attempts today. He threw 30 plus throws today. So with the amount of attempts, it was not like he's just coming out and throwing 20 passes, 15 passes every game. He's coming out and he's throwing the ball around the yard. And with only 6 interceptions and 41 touchdowns, that's an impressive ratio just on that stunt alone.
Well, listen, he averages 26 completions per contest. So it's every time he goes out, he's completing 26 passes. He's completing 70% of his attempts. He gets good tutoring from his private coach who's there on site, as well as offensive coordinator Brett Bartolone, who helps him out. So again, they're on the social media talking about him being 0-2. Okay, he's 0-2. All right, he lost 2 championship games, Celebration Bowl championship games. Now what? You want to?
Oh, he's saying now he getting bugged.
No, but what I'm
Tell
saying,
him,
no, but what I'm saying is now
Let him
what?
know.
Do you want to trash him because he's 0-2 and you want to trash him now? To me, that doesn't make too much sense. I understand that people are going to be butthurt. That's certainly understandable. But at the end of the day, it's about these kids and the development of these kids. That's what it's about at the end of the day, because I could just go into stories about people who have it way worse than you and I have it. So these are just games. How about being in a wheelchair, confined to a wheelchair?
Oh, we're getting heavy.
I just want people to put things in perspective. And don't get me wrong, competition is good. Competition is good for developing and learning. But at the same time, there are more important things, and I don't think that we should necessarily go out to intentionally try to trash someone or their character or even their legacy when you can see that they're not trying to, excuse my expression, screw anybody over, and they're giving their best effort to try to make things not only good for himself and his, but for everybody else collectively. And I think Coach Prime has been exemplary in doing that.
And also, people are saying, Mr. 0-2. I mean, the Bills did lose 4 straight Super Bowls. I mean, I don't know if that's the same thing.
You got beef with the Bills?
No, I'm just saying, people talk about Mr. 0-2. The Bills lost 4 straight Super Bowls. That's a little parallel right there.
Dylan,
That's all I'm saying.
I used to work with the Buffalo Bills.
Did you really?
Yes, dude, 4 years.
Oh, was it those 4 years?
Yes.
It was?
Oh, wow.
Don't.
You was there for them 4?
Don't age shame me.
Oh my goodness.
Simone. I think she's trying to get at me. Yes, 91, 92, 93, and 94.
So
and
were you bad luck? We're going to find out this year.
Was I bad luck? No, not at all. Okay, now here's a quick point. Now you talk about that, right? You remember the 4 losses, right?
Yes.
In 91, it was in Tampa.
I remember them talking about it.
The one in Dallas, Minnesota, the one in LA, and the one in here in Atlanta. Okay, but what spawned from those 4 losses? 7 Pro Football Hall of Famers spawned from losing. You follow what I'm saying?
Now, Dwayne, it's all about that hardware, baby. This me with it. This me with it, Dwayne. I want to read.
So hold on a second. So I pose this question to you. I pose this question to all of our viewers, everyone online. Would you rather be a Super Bowl champion or
Dwayne, you reaching.
No, I'm not.
brother.
I want you to hear me. Can you hear me out? Can you hear me out, Simone? Would you rather be a Pro Football Hall of Famer or would you rather be a Super Bowl champion?
That is
That's
tough.
a heavy question.
That is a tough question.
We can't answer because we never been in that situation. But as a fan, Dwayne, you want.
Yeah, I hear you.
Ask Dylan, who don't got a Super Bowl ring.
But
why you just wrecked at me?
You brought up NFL teams.
Because I was going off of the whole Mr. 0-2 talk. Dwayne brought that up, and I just wanted to bring up, people are trashing Deion Sanders for going 0-2 in Celebration Bowls. And when that has happened before, you look at a team like Buffalo Bills, they lose 4 straight Super Bowls, so it happens.
Right.
It happens.
But listen, even though it happens, I'm here to tell you the story.
Right.
That's why storytelling is very, very important, to let you know not the immediate result of what happened, but the legacy, the long term of what happened.
Right.
Bruce Smith, Pro Football Hall of Famer. Marv Levy, Andre Reed, Thurman Thomas, and the list goes on and on. So my point being, yeah, it was a negative situation. It wasn't fun. Well, it was hella fun. It was super exciting to go to the Super Bowl every year. It was one of the best times of my life.
It's a good time.
Then and literally right now are the best 2 times of my life. But I say that all to say that even though you look at something negatively, what happens long term down the road, you don't know what's going to happen. Right. And that's why we need storytellers in those key positions, AKA play-by-play positions, to tell stories of our heritage as it relates to HBCU athletics.
Let them know, Dwayne. We just messing with you, Dwayne. We just picking on you.
No, but little
I was about to say, I ain't know, Dwayne. I ain't mean to open up another room.
That was going to open up a whole wound.
If it makes you feel better, I'm a Falcons fan. I had to live to 28-3, so I'm sorry.
I got a rank, so I ain't got to worry about
all
that.
Right, move on to the next topic. That's the third Eagles surface. I'm cutting you off.
Y'all brought up Super Bowls, not me. Anyways, let's get to our Division I Defensive Player of the Year. This dude went on a tear all season long. Our Protect Your Skull, Division I, HBCU Gameday, Player of the Year on the defensive side of the ball coming from a Carolina school, South Carolina State University, B.J. Davis. Let's go into his stats. So for 2022, he had 3 interceptions in 8 games. He returned those. You know those guys that just catch an interception, but then they fall down, they don't know what to do?
Right.
That ain't B.J. Davis. When he catches an interception, he's taking it back. So he had 3 interceptions for 94 yards. He played in 8 games this season. He had 56 solo tackles. Wow. 56. 29 assisted tackles. That's 85 total tackles for you guys who can't add quickly. Tackles for loss, he had 8 tackles for a loss for 20 yards lost. He had 3 interceptions, 7 pass deflections. He do it all, everything. And he had 1 forced fumble. He also returned 1 of those interceptions for a touchdown, 59-yard touchdown return. B.J. Davis wreaking havoc in the MEAC.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. That's absolutely phenomenal. I just think there's like talent running amok in HBCUs. And again, it might not be top heavy, but there are some very talented individuals that can play at the next level, i.e. James Houston, who had a couple of sacks against my beloved Buffalo Bills. That was his coming out party. So my point being, there are guys that out here that can play at that next level. It's really about opportunity. And you can get that opportunity through HBCUs, in my opinion.
In all of our opinions. And James Houston balled out in the Celebration Bowl. The bowl games in general are for, trophies and rings and cigars, you know what I'm saying? But it's also for NFL scouts to see what these guys can do. And we saw 2 guys from last year's Celebration Bowl, Jacoby Durant out of South Carolina State University and James Houston from Jackson State University, get drafted into the NFL. Both of those guys are on the field in the NFL now, making plays. And so it's a wrap for this 2022 football season. You got something else to get off your chest?
No, you go ahead and rap. I did, but I don't want to be rude. But it happened so suddenly, like the season, like the football season. You just gonna cut it off just like that?
We wait so long for football, and then it's gone, over, just like that.
That's a wrap, like I said, for the 2022 HBCU football season. But you guys, stay tuned here. All my football lovers, we are about to be headed into draft season. There's a lot of guys from HBCU football that we are going to be following into the 2022 NFL draft. So the fun is just getting started. From our Atlanta studios, another Celebration Bowl in the books. Another Carolina team taking the win, this time North Carolina Central University, winning their first Celebration Bowl. This is their first time ever beating Jackson State University in history.
What a time to be alive.
Now they're 1 for 3, 1 for 4.
This is their first time beating them in history.
Right, I know. They played 3 previous times.
Yeah,
the last
you didn't
time
have to bring up all the losses, though.
Well, I'm just painting both sides of the picture. That's all.
Now you want to play both sides of the picture. Now that the show's over, I'm just playing. Shout out to North Carolina Central, 41-34 overtime win, their first Celebration Bowl win, first win over Jackson State. I am Simone Stanley, Dylan Matthews, Dwayne Walker, ATL, HBCU Gameday, signing off.